I have been involved in public service for quite some time, serving as Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs, as well as Commissioner of Media and Entertainment, and then worked with many of you when I served as 2020 Census Director, where during very difficult times where COVID hit the exact same week as the census was hitting, we were able to finish #1 of all cities across the country, and where we successfully sued the Trump administration to get the citizenship question off the census, and we won that case at the U.S. Supreme Court. I have now had the honor and privilege of serving as Speaker of the City Council and working with my incredible colleagues for the past 6 months, and I'm really proud of the wins we've been able to achieve, so I'll briefly talk about some of them. In the budget, we were able to, first of all, expand Fair Fares, a program that truly helps low-income New Yorkers most in need. We expanded Fair Fares to the highest level the city has ever had. So we expanded it by an additional 340,000 New Yorkers. So now 1.3 million New Yorkers will be eligible for Fair Fares, for that reduced fare for the bus, the subway, and paratransit. In addition, we created the nation's largest college savings program, where we are seeding every public school kindergartner with $1,000 in a college savings account. And this is so exciting because the research shows that a child who has a college savings account is 3 times more likely to go to college and 4 times more likely to graduate. So this program, NYC Kids Rise, is now in every single school across the city of New York. In addition, another big win that we had on the budget was we expanded the city FEPS program so that those New Yorkers truly in need were able to get them out of the shelter system and into the supportive housing that they deserve. And so we got an expansion of city FEPS for this year and for next year. And we also convinced the administration to drop the lawsuit against the city council, which we've been fighting for some time. And we passed a new bill that really creates some good parameters for this voucher system and takes it from one that was an entitlement program to one that is subject to appropriations, which is important in posterity, to keep the program going in that way. In terms of other budget wins in the council, we brought funding for parks, for cultural institutions, for our libraries to the highest level that they have ever had. We did a lot to help small businesses, and I know Councilmember Zhuang will talk about the bill that we are going to be passing, her bill, on Thursday. We did huge investments for the AAPI community across the city, so nearly $5 million for AAPI Community Support Initiative, which provides programming including youth programs, mental health support, and other culturally competent services. We secured nearly $2 million for the Asian American Education Project, which does, of course, AAPI curriculums, and nearly $1 million for CUNY's Asian American Research Institutes. We invested more than $2 million in legal services for AAPI communities. And then obviously we fought very, very hard to get $86.4 million in funding for immigration legal services. This is so incredibly important with what is happening around ICE raids throughout the city. And I think you all know about the work we did to secure the release of our own employee, Rafael Rubio, who was wrongly detained by ICE, and we were able to secure his release. We're working on Know Your Rights training. We're working on combating AAPI hate. So we allocated over $1.2 million for a hate crimes prevention initiative. So there's so much more we can say, but those are some of the highlights that we are really proud that we were able to secure in the budget. I will just end on 2 notes around this. G&T programs. I am someone who is a huge supporter of G&T programs. I have a lot of G&T programs in my district on the east side of Manhattan. I believe every community should have a G&T tract. I believe we should be expanding G&T, not contracting it, so that we're giving communities across the city that opportunity, and I think that's very important. And then I'll end on a note of public safety. We fought really hard in this budget to allocate more resources and headcount to the NYPD, in large part because certain crime statistics are going up. rape numbers are going up, hate crimes are absolutely going up, and we know that. Felony assaults are going up, and subway crime are going up. Those are the 4 categories where the crime numbers are unfortunately inching up. So we fought very hard to get increased headcount for the NYPD. At the 11th hour, that decision was made by the mayor to not allocate the additional headcount. That is personally not something that I agree with, and I think I've made my position clear on that, but I did want to mention that as well. And then I'm sure my colleagues have a lot that they are going to say and things that they're very excited about in terms of wins in the budget. So let me turn it over to our deputy leader. And let me just say one thing about our deputy leader, Councilmember Sandra Ung. It's incredibly exciting. She is the first Asian to be deputy leader in the city council. We have an unbelievably diverse leadership team. Linda Lee being the first Asian to be the finance chair, which is very, very exciting. So I will turn it over to our deputy leader for her remarks.
Thank you. I want to expand a little bit on the New York City Rise program, because even before this $1,000 investment into kindergartners that we earned this year, I actually partnered with a couple of banks for 2 elementary schools in my district. I did that because, as an immigrant, I know this growing up, like my parents did not know what investment meant. They didn't know like money can grow and the concept of compounded interest. And right now, education is getting more and more expensive. So as an immigrant community, it is so important that we find ways to invest in our children's education. And that's why I actually found some community banks. They're the Flushing Bank and Apple Bank, because I want to give them a shout out. Hopefully they'll be doing more of that. They could be doing more in the community to actually also contribute extra money into this program. My community obviously has a lot of Asian American organizations. I could name it all: CPC, AFI, YWCA, KFSC, Garner Hope, Kaipa. I could name a lot. So again, making sure our not-for-profits, and it's so important we really recognize our not-for-profits are really at the forefront when we talk about helping our community, because they are the people that can actually speak the language of the community. So while people have issues, concerns, about how to apply for a SNAP benefit, how to apply for affordable housing, what's going on with my Medicare, how do I, get that done? All those issues, actually, it is our community's not-for-profit that actually does that type of work. So the fact that, we fought for so many initiative funding that actually invest in our API community is something that's so meaningful. And I'll just add one more, because that's, very important to me. It's our Culturally Pacific Gender-Based Violence Initiative, where we actually have an initiative that works with domestic violence challenges. Because in the past, not a lot of funding went to these groups. I'm going to give KFSC and Garner Hope. Domestic violence is something that really affects all our communities, but especially in the Asian community. We don't really talk about this a lot. So we need groups out there that speaks the language of that community and that understands the culture of that community, where people feel comfortable going to you to talk to you. So that's something that, it's a true investment in our Asian American community that I really appreciate. And then one last thing, I'm going to throw in Charles B. Wang. Hep B, Hep B is like a silent killer in our Asian American community. Again, we don't talk about this a lot. However, we have to continue to raise awareness for that. And this year, again, we have funded Charles B. Wang to make sure, 1, the message is out there. You got to get tested. And 2, there are cures. There are ways to, if you do have Hep B, to get cured. But however, if you don't get tested and get your knowledge on that, then that won't happen.
The first time we have 8 Asian American city council members, and I think that's important because not just with budget and funding, but also legislation, the bills that we pass, it has a very different lens and perspective, I think, that we bring to the table, because we understand what our community's issues are and what the needs are. And so I think it's reflective in the legislation as well as the budget. So in addition to everything that everyone's mentioned with the budget, a couple things I just wanted to highlight is, as you know, mental health is a very important issue for me personally, for a lot of the same reasons as the domestic violence issue, which is that nobody talks about it. I have family members and close friends with severe mental illness in my family, and no one talks about it. And so that's why when I was at KCS, we fought so hard for 4 years to start up the outpatient mental health clinic, which showed me 2 things. Number 1, our healthcare system is very broken, and number 2, it's not meant for people that look like us, right? And so I think to be able to offer those services in the language and in the cultural competency where our communities understand that is so important, and we need to make sure that more groups are getting those types of licenses and certifications. And so we were able to put a lot of funding into the mental health support services. Much of that funding is actually going to a lot of the Asian organizations that Sandra mentioned as well. So that's extremely important for our community. And the other highlight that we really fought hard for is getting more funding in for our seniors with the homebound meal services. Because as you all know, homebound meals is, our seniors are aging. It's the fastest growing demographic, and they're much more diverse than in the past, right? So we have a large immigrant senior population where the English proficiency is very, very low, right? So I think the limited English proficiency and this was a long time ago, for Asian American seniors was like 90-something%, like meaning a huge portion of them couldn't speak English well or at all. And so that's why organizations that we fund are so important to provide these services. And of course, the meals program for the seniors is extremely important because we're offering a lot of culturally competent food, which is also more expensive, right? So if you're cooking fresh Chinese food or halal food or kosher food or Korean food, it's much more costly. And so we're actually investing a lot more money to give those homebound meal providers more funding to be able to provide those services on the weekend, as well as increasing the rate. So very, very proud of that work. And of course, a lot of things in here that are reflective. I just want to highlight the legal services portion, how extremely important that is for our community. And so we're really fighting hard, I think, in this council to make sure that we're bringing a diverse voice into the body as well as into the council. And thank you so much again, Speaker, for having all of us.
I just came before from a rally for our taxi drivers in our city, our Uber and Lyft drivers. We passed historic legislation in the city council to stop the unfair firing or deactivation of Uber and Lyft drivers with no notice or process whatsoever. So our legislation gave drivers due process, many of whom are Asian American, many of whom are immigrants, and we come from all of our districts. And so, we passed it in the last council, but then the outgoing mayor, Eric Adams, vetoed the legislation. And one of the first things that Speaker Menin did, and we had conversations about it, was to make sure that we overrode the last mayor's veto, and that law went into effect. And that's one of the first acts that we took in the city council that's hugely impacting so many of our API communities and drivers around the city. And then on top of that, we doubled down in that support by funding in this budget money for the agency DCWP to now work with the drivers to process their challenges to unfair deactivations, their appeals. So it's not even just we passed the law, but we put the funding behind it to make sure that we can get it done. And then on top of that, but earlier in the day, we were in the Bronx together because we funded a program called Wavemakers in the budget, which is teaching second graders how to swim. And it was the Speaker's bill earlier, before she was Speaker, and I was the chair of the Parks Committee. And at the time, once the legislation was passed, the Parks Department told us that they had no money to actually implement it. And as we all know, making sure children know how to swim is not just a luxury, but it's a life-saving skill. And for neighborhoods like Elmhurst and Jackson Heights, we don't have a single public pool. And so many of our Asian American children don't know how to swim. So getting access to swim safety, to lessons for free was critical. And we launched the program in Jackson Heights when it started. And then we put another $1.5 million, this was 3 years ago, but in this budget we put $1.5 million in to expand the program even more. And the number of Asian American families who have come up to me when I've been walking down Broadway in Elmhurst or on 37th Avenue in Jackson Heights that have said, we're so excited about this program because otherwise my children would not have known how to swim or feel safe in the water. And if you look at the statistics of how, the very few New York City children, I think it's 1 in 8 or something like that across the city, or 1 in 5 across the city, but those statistics are even worse for Asian American children who don't know how to swim either. And so this is an issue affecting us, and we took charge in this budget and made sure we funded it. And I think I'd just say a few other things that we spoke about before. We've allocated over $1.2 million in our hate crimes prevention initiative to combat hate, and there are some leading Asian American organizations who are doing the work on the ground to combat Asian hate that are funded in this budget too, and that was because we want to make sure that our nonprofits on the ground doing this work get the support and resources they need to serve our communities. And of course, Councilman really hit this too, but the funding for legal services is critical. And what's not talked about enough is how many Asian Americans are affected by all of Trump's hateful policies, and having language accessible services for our community, legal services, is so critical, and we funded that in this budget as well. So I think what you see is that all these different things, perhaps really exciting programs, but on top of that, there are things that are uniquely helping our API communities, and that's a huge testament to our speaker and everyone here at the table that we've made sure together that our API communities are represented and served.
Parks actually is very important for our community. A lot of time, because the income level for Asian community is not high enough, a lot of times the parks actually is their backyard. And especially seniors fully utilize the park in the morning and afternoon. You always see Asians dancing there, especially in my district. And I want to thank Speaker actually fight for the baseline. We increased $9.8 million to hire additional 100 PEP officers. So we'll make sure our seniors feel safer. And because last year I passed a bill, thank you, to help to pass a bill for safer parks for NYC. Because our seniors feels unsafe in the park. A lot of time people call them some Asian, they go back to China, go back wherever the country is coming from. Even people not Chinese, they tell them go back to China because they have Asian face. So a lot of hate crime being addressed in this budget, I think it's a big win for Asian community, because a lot of time we feel unsafe. The feeling of unsafe and have the money to address this issue is very important. And also I want to mention, and I want to thank our finance chair, Linda Lee, to try to push the bill about Meal on Wheel. This year we got big win, $12 million was added for seniors, and also additional $2 million for our caseworkers for seniors, especially the one homebound seniors. The immigrant community, we always think education is our future, because if we don't care about education, then we don't have a bright future. And I want to thank Speaker to really focus on and help our community, not only just Asian community, to get more gifted and talent program. It is very important, so make sure every single kid can be successful in the future. From a lot of research showing 1 of 3 API youth has been either think about suicide or try to commit a suicide. That's a big issue. And after I spoke to Chair Linda Lee and Speaker, they actually put in action. I love that, because they put in action, allocate some funding for API youth mental health. In Brooklyn, we also benefit for that also. I do feel this council is include everyone. No matter what language you speak, what skin color you have, what background you have, you rich, you poor, doesn't matter. This speaker is really deliver the service for everyone. And I also want to thank all the media, get the story out, and then make sure people aware what's happening in the city, and then you guys the channel for the people in the community really communicate with government, and also for us to communicate the public also. Thank you guys.
I got involved because of so many storefronts that I've noticed. There's so many empty storefronts, not just in Manhattan, Chinatown, but my district. We lost a lot of kids after COVID. It's a fact. I sat in the school board and I saw it. We lost easily 100,000 kids. And many either left the city already, or the parents put them in charter schools, private schools, Catholic schools. We have to bring them back, and you have to make public schools more attractive to the kids, to the parents. Save up for your kids, and Speaker Menin's $1,000 savings account is just wonders to, one, bring more kids back to public school, and two, get them to start saving up for college. Also, gifted and talented programs. To make public schools more attractive, we got to have programs that attract kids. We should have them more of these programs, so more of the students could apply, and so they could stay in the public school system. So funding parks is paramount, to get them to go out, get them to involve, get them to interact with other kids. We need more police officers, it's a fact, and then Asians don't feel safe after all these attacks, random attacks in subways, in the streets. We need more police officers. I sound like a broken record, but there are people that disagrees with me, but I'm going to advocate for that.
If you have any questions, you're always welcome to email us. We have a couple minutes though for questions now, so if anyone has something they'd want to ask, happy to turn it over to you.
The first question is on Rikers. So on Rikers, the council, before we all got there, passed a law that said that Rikers needed to close. And this new plan involved the construction of 4 community jails, 1 in Chinatown. So that happened before any of us were in the city council. As we know, the construction of those new jails is very behind schedule. They will not be completed to 2030, 2031, and in some cases 2032. So that creates a real problem. The mayor made his announcement yesterday. Obviously, we need to ensure that there is a solution here. The solution has to involve either expediting the construction to the extent possible of the facilities, or the council needs to pass new legislation, because obviously the administration will not be in compliance with the legislation in terms of closing Rikers, or we need another solution in terms of what happens in the interim. So again, that will be conversations that we will have with the administration. The mayor has not indicated to me what his plan is. I mean, ultimately it's administration that has to come up with the plan. I think we need to increase opportunities in communities across our city, and that means expanding the G&T program so that more students, Black and Latino students, Asian students across the board, have access to the gifted and talented programs, because we know that at the specialized high schools, many are coming from the G&T track. So the thing we should not be doing, in my humble opinion, is contracting G&T. We should be expanding G&T and giving more opportunities to diverse communities across the city to have access to G&T, to have access to free test preparation. These are all things that we need to expand access to.
I have 2 bills. One bill is asking New York's early child education to give the data where all the G&T program. We know from Bloomberg's time, the G&T program in Black and brown community was canceled. And for those years, they don't have the pipeline there. But now I feel that a lot of politicians pick one group against another group instead of fixing the issue. The issue here is we don't have the pipeline in Black and brown community. That's the reason a lot of time those communities get left behind. Do they have brilliant kids? Of course, every single community have brilliant kids. We need to address this issue, root canal issue, not only just some politicians just pick one group against another. That's not the solution. That's basically running away from the solution. And the other thing is, in 50s, 60s, the specialized high school majority is Black and brown kids. The reason changed. Nowadays, we don't have enough Black and brown community kids going to specialized high school because the pipeline disappeared. And I want to thank our speaker actually push and invest more in Black and brown community. That will help Black and brown community to increase the number of students go to specialized high school. The other point I want to mention is for specialized high school, 50 kids need school lunch. They are not from wealthy neighborhoods. They actually from immigrant families, lower income. That's actually the opportunity for the immigrant community with lower income for their kids to have a way to succeed, have better education. For politicians try to cancel that, that's not the solution. they're running away from the solution.
Sure, no, thank you so much for the question. I'm so glad you're asking it. Actually, tomorrow we are holding a hearing that will be held by Councilmember Lee and Councilmember Pirina Sanchez's committee on Mitchell-Lama. Mitchell-Lama is such an important program, and yet we know for a fact that Tracy Towers, Mitchell-Lama complex in the Bronx, the Housing and Preservation Development Agency, run by the administration, is raising rents 31% on those residents. So we are holding a hearing tomorrow to get to the bottom of it, because it's not only at Tracy Towers in the Bronx. We are hearing reports about Mitchell-Lamas throughout the city where HPD is raising the rents to astronomical levels that are simply unaffordable. There are so many teachers, retirees, so many middle-income families that are living in these Mitchell-Lama complexes, and so we are going to get to the bottom of it and really push back on that. In addition, one of the things that I'm so excited about that the council is doing is we want to be partners in addressing the affordability crisis by building more housing. And we're doing that in a number of different ways. Generally, the city council weighs in on land use actions, ULURPs, and that is how we have our voice heard. What we're doing instead is I've announced that we have a proactive vision to build more affordable and middle income housing, and we're doing that in a couple ways. One, we looked at the 215 public library branches and we saw which ones we could build housing on top of. So we are building affordable housing on top of a number of library branches throughout the city. Two is we surveyed every single vacant small lot. Those are those little narrow strips of vacant parcels that you see overgrown with weeds, sometimes rats, between buildings. There are 2,850 of them. We are going to change the building code so that we can develop these almost 3,000 small lots. We can develop them into 35,000 units of housing. So these are the ways that we as a city council are going to help to build more housing, just to your point, so that we understand there are all sorts of housing that need to be built across many different levels. And so these are two creative outside of the box ways that we're going to do just that.
I just wanted to quickly add also, because I know that my district, there's a lot of homeowners, it's mostly residential. A lot of our communities are in a similar situation in the outer boroughs. And so actually the council did champion a lot of the home ownership relief programs as well, which I think is going to impact a lot of our communities. And then also, even though on the city side, we're not in control of the property tax system, we are looking to reform it because we can control the rates that are within the property tax system for both 1-2 family homes, co-ops, apartment buildings. So on our side of what we can do on the council, that's also going to help a lot with the affordability agenda, because that's also a lot of our districts include that as well.
And we stopped the raising of property taxes because the threat that the mayor had said at the beginning of the budget to raise property taxes 9.5%, we shut that down, so that did not happen. Thank you for that question. So I want to say a couple things about that. I formerly served as Commissioner of Media and Entertainment for the city, and in that role, I launched at CUNY's Journalism School a new media initiative where we gave over $1 million to train community journalists in new media, new video, new digital techniques. This was back in 2018 because studies were showing that 50% of New Yorkers derive their daily news from community and ethnic media. When I ran the census and I was the city's 2020 census director, I allocated half of our media budget to community and ethnic newspapers. So that, was a significant sum of our $40 million budget went for ads in all of your various publications. And we ran 36 different media campaigns in 27 different languages on the census. So you are correct that the administration now is not, we believe they're not in compliance with a law that the council passed that mandates that they need to be taking out ads in community and ethnic newspapers. So we are going to have a hearing on that because I am very concerned that that law is not. We're going to have a hearing on it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna have a hearing on it because the administration is not in compliance with that law. That law was passed by the council, again, to make sure that all of your outlets and all of the community and ethnic outlets throughout the city are supported. So for example, when city agencies, and I was Commissioner of Consumer Affairs, and we launched a paid sick leave law, we did all of our ads, we did it in 26 languages, we did ads in, I think, all of your publications. Like, that is what the city agencies are supposed to be doing. So they're supposed to be allocating a certain percentage of the ad buy to community and ethnic outlets, and we understand that's not happening. So we will have a hearing on it to get to the bottom of it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
we
you
really
so
appreciate
much.
you
It was
all
so
coming.
great to have all of you
I have a
here.
Love you guys.
Couple.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.